As the search for a presidential flag bearer of the ruling All Progressives Congress APC continues, a series of events have preceded its long-awaited convention following its postponement. In the last few days, consultations have intensified after the party successfully conducted a screening exercise for all of its aspirants. Recall that the president had met with northern APC governors severally to discuss issues regarding who succeed him and the possible emergence of a consensus candidate. The issue seemed to have been put to rest after 11 of the governors jointly signed a communique agreeing that the presidency be zoned to the south. However, all seemed not to be well in the ruling party, as reports initially claimed that its chairman, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, had announced Senate President Ahmed Lawan as the party's consensus candidate. This claim shortly sparked outrage within the party, occasioning another meeting between the APC governors and President Muhammadu Buhari earlier today. In another purported rebuttal, the president was said to have debunked claims of supporting the emergence of Lawan as the party's candidate. He had declared before the party's 14 northern governors that he has no prepared candidate and has anointed no one, and asked the stakeholders to deepen the ongoing consensus build-up in the party. The question then remains, was Ahmed Lawan truly announced as the party's consensus candidate? In whose interest will that be? What impact will it make as the party heads to the National Convention? Joining us tonight to discuss these issues is Professor Kamal Bello, a public affairs analyst who will be joining us via Skype to discuss some of these issues. While here in the studio, we have Precious Elekima, who is a chieftain of the ruling All Progressives Congress, the APC. But before we commence the program proper, we'll take a minute. When we return, the discussion continues. Stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us. My name is Shafiu Suleiman, and the program is Daily Politics. It is reaching you live from Trust TV here in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. And today our talking point is APC's defining moment. And just like I said, we have two guests who will be joining us to discuss these issues. Professor Kamal Bello will be joining us via Skype. And here in the studio, we have Chief Precious Elekema, who is much seated in the studio. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, your party, the APC, is at a crossroads, some will say. Courtesy of the moment, you know, the time we find ourselves. A party is going into a special convention, some will say with a divided house. There has been so much intrigue, so much interest, so much, you know, horse trading around who emerge the flag bearer of the party. From 23 candidate aspirants, we had 13 were recommended to go on, and 10 were said to have been asked, perhaps, recommended perhaps to should I say, step down now, you know, to reduce the number and so on. Why is it, you know, why is it critical, you know, for the ruling party at this point in time to have a common ground?
Well, they already have a common ground. And the common ground is the issue of transition. And so a little storms and bumpings here and there is like a journey in the sea where you have the storms, or on the air you have the bumps. And these are healthy things that build up the polity. It's a human affairs. 23 candidates, which means 23 interest divisions. And so I don't have fears for it. It's normal. It's normal. It is. I think that the party is matured enough, Mr. President, has that maturity, and then it will all end in praise at the end of the day. So I'm not really perturbed about it.
Okay, you're not perturbed when you are having 23 aspirants, contesting to pick the to pick the ticket of the party, and at the same time, you're not perturbed when the president who was elected under the platform of the APC, had met, severally, not once, not twice, the third and the fourth time with stakeholders, including governors, but yet they are yet to agree or produce a consensus candidate. Isn't this, a challenging moment for the party?
You have to appreciate changing times. You have to appreciate that the Electoral Act is working. If it was yesteryears, somebody would have, with a fiat, said, this is what President says. But that Electoral Act requires that all candidates must voluntarily endorse to say, we have agreed, I have ceased to be candidate, I have stepped down. This is the nothing point. And so that is why you have series of meetings. Because even if one candidate alone says, I'm not in agreement, then they're going to the ballot. So you have to appreciate that the Electoral Act, as amended, is beginning to fix the knotty issues of imposition and, overbearing influence and all that. So that's why I tell you that these are storms that are expected, and the Electoral Act is in display. That, nobody, the president, national chairman has announced, to say, oh, this is what, assuming that he announces, if it was true. And then he said no. So if it was before, they would have said party is supreme. Party has spoken.
But isn't it the same situation? We'll come to that because developments today have indicated also that, even though it wasn't officially announced by the party, but we heard earlier today that the national chairman of the party has endorsed or handpicked or, announced the current Senate President, Ahmed Lawan, as a consensus candidate.
The president position clearly defines that if the national chairman did say so, that the president was not part of it. And the 14 northern governors have said they are not part of it. And the others have said they are not part of it. So the national chairman may have had an opinion, a personal opinion, as it were. And it shows that...
Do you see it as a personal opinion? Remember, at some point, the National Executive Committee of the party has ceded its powers to the NWC. And the chairman of the party is the leader of the NWC. And we are also aware that recently, just yesterday or thereabout, President Muhammadu Buhari has consistently talked about the need for him to provide a direction. And you think the chairman of the party will take a unilateral decision without the endorsement of the president?
I don't want to argue whether he took unilateral. The president's position of saying, I'm not part of it, I don't know what that means. You have to process that.
But even that statement is also contentious. Contentious in the sense that what the governors were telling the press, for instance, at that conference was that, yes, they met the president, they registered their disagreement with the position, and Mr. President told them to go back to the NWC and deepen the consultation, consensus arrangement and so on. So at what point?
Look, like I said to you, we are lucky that we have the Electoral Act that is like a spanner. It's a big departure from before to say, you can't just say it. The least candidate there says, you can't say it. They need to agree. No matter how the consultations they will have, they can go back and forth until everybody agrees, they cannot have a consensus. So right now, you don't have that authority, that audacity, where somebody says, this is it. But now you have something behind it, just controlling you, not talking. Say, the whole 23 must agree. If they don't agree, well, the delegates have to determine who becomes a flag bearer. So we are...
But what do you understand by, I mean, providing a direction? Is Mr. President talking about providing a direction?
Providing a direction. Providing a direction, what is it? You say, go and see if you can agree to have one. Mr. President signed the amendment. He is aware that he cannot issue a presidential order, an executive order, to say this is what it should be. Okay?
But he pleaded with the governors. They should allow him to choose his successor. So, isn't it, I mean...
You know, you can never finish drawing a political map. Every secondary minute, a new angle comes up. I believe there is time in politics. 30 minutes is a lot of time to have that direction. So I'm not scared, I'm not worried. If you don't have such healthy storms, it doesn't show that the party is truly a party. The PDP just had theirs, they had 17 candidates. Right, there were directions. Okay? At the heat of it, there was a direction. So I believe that these storms and bombs don't scare me.
So you're not afraid of possible implosion in the event that some people or some aspirants felt that they are offended, or their interest is not being carried along?
They have a stay, a tension stay. The Electoral Act is there. If you don't agree, you go for election. So it is not a situation whereby Mr. President has spoken, this has spoken, so you walk away. No. There is something that is a stay, tension stay. The way you have the electric pole is standing, then there's a stay. You have a stay, and the stay is the Electoral Act that says that all of you must agree.
But what happened to the initial agreement, so to speak, some that came in form of the form that was signed that you accept, what the party does, the party is prim, and so on and so forth. So in the event that one, goes against that, didn't you think that that is also, in contravention with the...
You see, the clause is all. The clause is not two-thirds, it's not three-quarter, it's not 95%, it is all. So...
Well, we're having the signatures of the governors there on the screen, who, agreed or thrown their weight behind the Southern candidacy.
It doesn't matter. You see, the issue is that the powers now are in the hands of the contestants to agree. The whole 36 governors in Nigeria can sign, it doesn't hold water. The Electoral Act has been able to protect the minority interest. It has protected the minority interest. So somebody, just one candidate, holds the party to ransom to say that this is my opinion. And if you want to gag me, you want to shout me down, let democracy speak. So this is.
Well, but we have several blocks, so to speak. Just looking at the issue, very critically, we have the presidency on one hand, with a president who wants to have a hand in picking his successor.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we have a national leadership of a party that also, want to wield the big stick, to show that, yes, all party members will have to respect, decision of party. On the other hand, again, we have governors, initially 10, now 12 of them, throwing their weights behind a Southern candidacy. On one hand, we also have contending forces, 2 aspirants or more from the northern extraction who also wants to have want to slug it out, so to speak. Looking at all of this, compelling issues and contending interests, where do you see the party navigating through the landmines?
See, like I said to you, you must appreciate the meaning of the amended Electoral Act. Its purpose is to secure, to protect minority views.
But it doesn't have to interfere with internal party affairs.
No, it is that stay power, that comfort, that guarantee that has made these endless consultations to continue. It will continue until all agree. So you must come from you must appreciate when somebody says, governor has spoken. Somebody says, president has spoken. This is party position. Right now, the Electoral Act has protected that no imposition, no governor's influence, no president's influence. This is a new factor that you must understand that is protecting those who fight to say that godfathers, godmothers, money bags, whatever, had trampled on my right, and I've said I must agree and all that. So that's what is playing out.
But the Electoral Act is not precluding the fact that parties can also adopt consensus. There are three options.
No,
it can be direct primary, it can be indirect, it can also be consensus.
Okay, that's where we are is, they already have delegates who are ready to cast their votes now. They are waiting. These ones, they are doing a sideshow. By the time the convention starts, if they don't have a consensus, the human beings, the 2,300 and something delegates, will determine. That's why I say I'm not too worried. It is when something doesn't have a solution that I get worried about. They are discussing. I still, maybe some beer parlor talk, some friendly talk, some coffee talk, okay? But there's a time that all will be dumb, and people will use their immortal nomination powers to speak. At that time, the arguments will be dumb, and then cards, voting cards will speak. So at the end of the day, doing that, all the candidates are satisfied that they were voted for. And then when they count the votes and one person emerges, it becomes a very satisfying winning or a very satisfying losing. But I think that if we must give kudos to the Electoral Act that it has been able to fine-tune our system. I'm telling you from an experience that they say governor said this or president said this. And this is what it is.
The Electoral Act will likely apply the brakes, just like you said. But then what do you make up with the body language, the interpretation of the body language of the party and its leadership? The screening committee, which was headed by a former national chairman of the party, trimmed down the number from 23 to 13. Even though there were clarifications, by the chairman that yes, the committee doesn't have the power to stop anyone from aspiring, but they will have to recommend, those that they think are strong enough, to face the other candidates of other political parties. That's step one. Again, step two, well, we're beginning to also see, even though not substantiated, an influence of the party in picking a consensus candidate. Didn't you think all of this, a gradual process to show that there are certain, or to deny certain people the opportunity to slog it out as they want?
That's why I keep telling you that yesterday, the party says, this is our position. You either take it or you leave it. Okay? Today, the party is appealing. This is our opinion. It is not take it or leave it. the people have a protection behind to say, we have a right to say we are not accepting. And so they're going to get into a quagmire. President knows that if the 23, one does not agree, they must go for the ballot. The national chairman knows that it is beyond him to say, I have declared, because the INEC is there to watch. So what I mean is that I think that we must appreciate and thank Mr. President. He has a legacy that he was able to protect the minority rights and views of people going to elections. To say that godfathers, money bags, governors, presidents have limited influences to determine somebody's fate. As soon as you buy the form, you become a factor. Because they know that if you don't agree, everybody must go to the polls. So I think that...
but the party is banking on the fact that it was able to achieve substantially this consensus arrangement during the immediate national convention, which produced the leadership of the party. Perhaps it want to replicate same.
You see, the difference is that this is quite different. That was the first beginning of trial of the Electoral Act. This is quite a different ball game altogether.
What makes it different? What makes it different?
What makes it different is that, first of all, the caliber of people contesting this, and also the support. It's a transition. So many things are tied to it. The interests and value for party offices is not the same as the interest and value for the executive office of president. So it has no second-hand value. It has no second-hand value.
What do you mean by second-hand value?
If you lose, you have lost. And if you're, everybody says, this is our position. So everybody's holding on to their position. And if they have to do us trading, they say, okay, if at the end of the day, say, okay, you will take this, you will take this, you will have this, you will have this. This is what they have to agree. So if two people says, we must be presidents, and they refuse to step backwards, then they're going to go for the election. So national chairman and the president, it's not the same thing. There are too many interests tied. Those who want to be ministers, those who want to be one thing or the other, it's tied to it. So you don't expect the same type of thunders and storms. This one is more of a tsunami, a hurricane, that they say that, look, you must hold your ground. You must stand your ground.
But where do you place the governor's insistence or decision that the party, the ticket should be zoned to the south? They've been pushing this consistently. From 10, they are now 12.
Yeah.
We've seen also a meeting where one of the governors walked out,
Yes.
And it was seen to be, he went out of the meeting and perhaps threatening to address the press and so on. It shows also among the governors there is also not uniformity, even though the State Governor Nasser Rufai said they have the majority on their side. About 12, of them have agreed on the same. But will their decision or their position also change anything in the equation?
They can only translate that through their delegates. But as far as speaking, to say that this is what we say, that is something that could have been able to hold water before the Electoral Act was signed. Right now, they're duty-bound to either get the 23 together or they will transmit their authority to the electorate to say this is what we want. And if the electorate believe them, if the electorate listen to them and agree with them, and will do that in the secret, enclosed area where they're going to cast the vote, then that is it. So what means is that everybody was holding their breath.
But wouldn't that also come with its own implication? Yes, yeah, agreed that governors have substantial influence on the delegates and so on. But the governors, most of them are also, I mean, finishing their second term. A number of them are eyeing the Senate, for instance.
You cannot guarantee
and it
that
is the party that would have to give them the ticket, or the party, you know, has given them the ticket.
Yeah.
The party also has influence on how they emerge.
See, I keep saying one thing. I played a very big role in talking about the Electoral Act. The governor's interest, everything had been taken care of by the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act actually seized the unseen powers of money bags and godfathers, godmothers, and godsisters.
Including their ability to teleguide the delegates?
You can. If you teleguide somebody to the river, you can't force it to drink. Because when you teleguide, you can only tell people when you go vote this person. Then the person gets there and does what he likes. During the PDP convention, some friends of mine said, they were sure they were going to vote this, but when some people went, they did what they liked, secret balloting. So the governors, to the extent they can tell them, give them directions, it's left for the people to accept and believe. So you should expect surprises. And this takes us to the general elections. This will be worse in the general election because this is the first time Nigerians are going to vote, major are going to vote for the candidate they prefer. This is going to be...
Why is it so? Is it also courtesy of the confidence that build up in as a result of the Electoral Act?
You see, the Electoral Act, the provision that talks about accreditation, did not have any form of redundancy. It didn't say, before it used to say use incidence forms and all that. No, it says if the elections cannot hold for the reason of failure of a card reader or other technologies to be used, the election will be postponed. And if INEC is able to show that without that particular polling unit, it will affect the declaration of the result, then that election must be conducted 24 hours thereafter. So it didn't. So when you accredit, the accreditation is not done by biometric. The difference between accreditation, authentication of INEC card reader and the bank software is the bank software uses PIN, the INEC uses human blood, biometrics.
So you mean the substantial departure in terms of the processes and the also the efficacy or efficiency of the current process would build that confidence among the electorate?
Yeah, what you see what has happened is that a few people had been lording over and controlling millions of the people. Gradually there's a transition where the millions of the people are going to hold the few people. So you find out that by the time they go for the election and the few people discover that this election will not be determined by thugs, because if the thugs go and break the whole places up and they do not have the access to the accreditation, then they've done nothing. So people will say, oh, no, I need to behave well because these people are going to determine me. So that's what the Electoral Act is. And that's why I say that no matter whatever anything says about Mr. President, he has been able to leave a legacy that will evolve,
sustain. Transform the system,
the democracy of this country. You know that gradually people are talking to people before nobody talks to anybody. This would have been something of Mr. President said this.
That's right. Okay, it's about time we take a break. In case you're just joining us, the program is Daily Politics. And today we're looking at the APC's defining moment and with one of its chieftains talking about Precious Lekeme, who is giving us his perspective on the challenges, currently before the APC at its goes into its national convention to elect its presidential flag bearer. I also told you earlier we will be joining Professor Kamal Bello, perhaps as soon as we get him, online to also give us his perspective. So stay with us. We'll be back shortly. Thank you very much for staying with us. It's still daily politics. And we're looking at APC's defining moment with Precious Lekeme, an APC chieftain. Together we'll be looking at the challenges and, the defining moment around the APC's convention, which is scheduled to hold tomorrow for the emergence of its flag bearer. Mr. Precious, looking at, the calculations and miscalculations and the forces, the various contending forces within the APC, to those who are pushing for, routing for a northern candidacy, and to those who are insisting that the power should shift to the south, many will say the emergence of Atiku Abubakar as a flag bearer of the PDP has left APC in limbo. It appears at a crossroad, lost as to what it should do to be able to conquer, if you like, or deal with the challenges of the emergence of Atiku Abubakar. Where do you belong? Do you think power should retain? The candidate should emerge from the north or from the south?
My first position, let the best person who can transform this country, who can create a free market economy, who can create a good educational system, who can create good health system emerge. No illness, no hunger understands north or south. At the point we are, for us to be discussing north and south in a country where there are intermarriages, things, I think it's not good for us. But be that as it may, I do not see, we have had this country where Abiola ran against Tofa. And Tofa is coming from the northwest, and Abiola was coming from southwest. The wishes of the people prevailed, and Abiola was said to have won the June 12 election. So
we're looking at the current dynamics.
Yeah, no, the dynamics is the same, didn't change. Now, Atiku emerging from the northeast, and whoever that will emerge from the APC, I do not think that Atiku's emergence gives any threat. But it gives any threat. I don't think so.
But political parties are looking at the chances, and of course they are also looking at...
The chances, let me give an example. I feel more threatened with Kwankwaso because he has a following that almost looks like Buhari. Kwankwaso has a huge following. I feel more threatened with that. Atiku's a fine guy, nice guy, and everything. But, Buhari had this following that the crowd, Kwankwaso had that. So I don't think that the APC will be looking at Atiku. They will also be looking at Kwankwaso.
But did you think that, looking at the equation now, whether we like it or not, we have 6 geopolitical zones, for instance.
Yes.
Now, the PDP, came up with its presidential flag bearer, who happens to emerge from the north, northeast in particular. Now they are, saddled with the challenge of, producing a running mate.
Yes.
They are looking at the options.
Yes.
But the South,
yes,
South generally, particularly the Southeast, has been crying of marginalization.
Yeah.
And the APC, perhaps some would say, would not want to also toe the same line with the PDP.
Yes.
For, I mean, having its candidate emerging from the north. And that in itself would now show that the southern part of the country is alienated or is, is sidelined, so to speak, especially at the top level. They could have the running mate position.
That's what I say that. See, the Electoral Act did a lot of curing. They need to say, any candidate where he emerges from, they need to tell the people what they need to do. Nigerians, to a great extent, are not interested in where any of these people come from. I'm telling you.
Really? Because looking at, how do you explain a scenario where you have two contending political parties, or two biggest political parties in the country, producing their candidates from the same zone, for instance?
Look, when the PDP went on their convention, there were 90 votes from the eastern part. IM scored 14. So which means, had there been 75 votes for IM, then you would have said that the cry of the East was what?
It's something to write home about.
So being that they went and gave him 14 votes, that kind of, they couldn't justify the quest for the crown. Because if they gave him 90 votes, and even Atiku won, then the rest of the country will say, what's going on? These people had spoken in their action that they needed it. That's why I'm telling you that I'm not perturbed about where it comes from. Nigerians are all watching the capability of who. It is not,
but talking about
10-15% will be talking about Hausa, Yoruba, this, but I can tell you that it does not in any way have any major effect.
But talking about, self-entitlement or kind of, even the top contenders, today we've had the like of the leader of the party, Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, talking about it is time for the South. It is our time to produce the president. It is our time to produce. So it goes even beyond those at the periphery, or talking about those on the street.
There are statements that are selfishly made. Somebody says it is the time for the South. So which is South? Is there any family in Nigeria that don't have North and South? There is no family in any part of Nigeria that you won't find Hausa. Okay, I'm married to a woman who is, her father is South, her mother is North. Her father Christian, her mother was a Muslim.
Yeah.
Okay? And almost all the families you go to, you find Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, like that. So when people make statements that it's Yoruba turn, so when you go to Ahmed Tinubu's house, if you are not careful, his first daughter is married to somebody from Kogi. Maybe his second son is married to somebody from Onitsha. Maybe the third son is married to somebody.
But beyond the intermarriages, you find them, talking, and then you find a group of governors also, original political gladiators or political bloc talking about the time. I mean, it is time for us.
These are statements of convenience.
Right. Let's take a look at this video, the outcome of the meeting between President Muhammadu Buhari and the Northern Governors. Let's hear, the chairman of the Northern Governors Forum talking about their position and what they told Mr. President.
Our meeting today is to reaffirm our position that in the interest of unity, in the interest of peace, and also justice, we recommended that the next president should come from the South.
The governor of Kogi State chose to excuse himself from meeting with Mr. President because he believes that he does not agree with our position. There are 14 APC governors out of the 19 northern states. 13 of us are on one page on this subject, and we all came to see the president. But the governor of Kogi State excused himself and it is within his democratic rights to excuse himself.
We look at the totality of the issues in our country. We believe APC with 22 governors, APC with a president that has delivered on democratic dividend across the breadth of this country, has everything going for it. What is the political brinksmanship that we need to bring so that every component of Nigeria will feel important? Like I said, there are northern candidates of northern extraction, and we are not ignoring their capacity or their interest, but we felt that if political expediency can encourage a step that will bring more peace and resonate with everyone across Nigeria, we are bold enough to say it.
That was Governor of Kebbi State, talking about Bakar Bagudu, giving the rationale behind their decision. He talked about things, that are fundamental. The need, to give a sense of belonging to other components of the country. And they're also talking about the political expediency and the brinkmanship, looking at what formula will work for the party in this kind of scenario we find ourselves. Isn't this enough germane reasons why,
Don't you think it is belated? They would have thought of this at the time they were to sell their forms.
But you are talking about democratic contest. You're talking about the choice of people's democratic right to contest.
They sold forms. People brought 100 million naira to purchase forms. People went around this country and built emotions and assurances to people, made commitments to people. Party members gave support to various people, and they went around, believing that their candidates would win. And 48 hours, 24 hours to the time, you say, drop that interest. Drop that interest. Even if you can write off the whole expenses, can you also write off the emotions and the assurances? The persons you want to, those who now pitch tents with all the northern candidates who think that the candidate will win, where are you going to throw them to? Because they would have felt that this is what it is. And so I think that it was rather too late today. I believe that, and I agree.
But what would have informed, for instance, the decision, the sudden decision taken?
Well, that's what I'm saying, that, there's a wrong sense of timing, with all due respect. But I said earlier that little storms and bombs in politics is all part of the game. I think that they have expressed their wish. Nigerians from north and south, and I respect the governors. Let me tell you, this is the first time that there had been so much definition of identity. We are Igbos, we are Yorubas, we are this. And so the governors, mindful of what has happened, Nnamdi Kanu, Sunday Igboho, and all that, they try to say, look, we understand people's feelings and emotions, and that's part of it. But so that's what we're saying, that, and so tomorrow Nigerians will say, okay, if a northern candidate emerges, you see that, the governors, the leadership tried their best, but, the people had their own democratic rights and exercised it, and this is what happens.
Yeah. There are indications that Mr. President is on the same page with them in this, but there are also concerns with regards to people around him. Some say those who have been pushing for this northern candidacy are people around the presidency as well. So how can you reconcile these facts? One aspect, how can you detach such people who are pushing for this and the president's position with regards to having a candidate, even though he didn't talk about this north and south divide. He's talking about a candidate that can build confidence, that can unite the people, and so on.
See, the juiciness of that office and what comes with it in the Nigerian context, You know, people are fighting for protection, they're fighting for tomorrow. You have a situation whereby people are enslaved to the office and the potentials it comes with. And so when they are fighting, they are not fighting because of the interest of the country. So most people are fighting for their personal interest to say, look, if this man is here, I'm sure of this. If this man is here, I'm sure of this. You understand what I mean?
At the expense of the unity and cohesion of the country?
They don't care. They don't care. This is a place where people steal more than what they need. If somebody has 250 billion naira in his account, 250 billion, he is probably 50 years old. So if he lives another 50 years old,
making 100.
Making 100. And the man has 250 billion. And so even if you assign 100 billion, 1 billion a year for him, which gives him about, okay, say 1.2 billion, he spends 100 million a month for himself. So he will not spend up to 75 billion. Yet the man at that 250 billion, he's still trying to get more. So you understand what I mean? And then they don't even bother that after they have more, their children are all taken outside the country. And those that have cheated, for those that had robbed, and have now made the place ungovernable, and then their children are afraid to come back. And then they have built some beautiful houses, which rooms has been occupied by cockroaches and rats, and they are staying in the ground floor. And then they want their children to come back. They find it difficult to convince their children to come back. And when you ask the children say, no, Nigeria is not safe, we're not coming. And so the mother and the father end up staying in the lowly houses, and then they travel. And when they travel, they barely can stay 2 months outside, and they come back.
Yeah, the proponents of an open contest, or those who feel that they should be allowed to slug it out, are also having their own advantage. The permutations around indicate that a number of these frontline aspirants also show off the number of candidates they can amass, courtesy of their deep pocket as well.
And the delegates are not happy that there will be consensus. The delegates are also calling for these elections to hold, because the delegates also think that, look, stories about how PDP convention went, and so most delegates are prepared themselves to come. So there are delegates who are holding night vigil, praying that please let this consensus fail, so that we can get what we want. I had a delegate telling me that she has prayed, she has fasted.
There shouldn't be consensus.
None of this consensus should work, because her friend who came for PDP convention bought a car at the car stand and left, and she had prepared herself to come. So
to also do the same. Okay, let me get your last slide on this. What would have been the best option for the party now, with all this, permutations around?
I'll tell you. What would have been the best option is sit down, tell them the truth. Who enjoys street support? Who can win the general elections? Who has the ability to be able to reposition this country? Who has the ability to look at it and take this country to the next level? And that would have informed them, and they would have taken a unanimous decision to say this is what we want. And then when they rise from the meeting and say this is what we think that can happen, then know that even if they say it's consensus, the people must still vote. And then at that point, they can tell the people. But if you just come up with, say this is consensus, and the people know that what you are recommending is not reasonable to the interest of the country, then the rejection comes. So I think that they need to...
And the ultimate end will be...
going to the ballots.
And if you throw up a candidate that is not popular, not in tandem with the... All right.
The people will speak.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief Lekeme, Precious Lekeme, for talking to us on Daily Politics.
Thank you.
We really appreciate your perspective.
Thank you.
We were unable to reach out to Professor Kamal Ballo due to certain technical challenges, but we also thank him for agreeing to join us on the platform.
Thank you.
So on your behalf and the technical crew, this is where we have to come to the end of the program. We do hope you'll join us tomorrow, where we'll be back with another set of personalities and topic, especially as we head towards this National Convention of the APC and other, issues within the polity arising from all the political platforms. Thank you very much for staying with us. I'm Shafiu Suleiman.